Hi, everybody. Just wanted to do a quick video on sort of a high-level overview of the entire course. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to give you some context for how to succeed in TECM 5191. So I'm going to start with some overarching course objectives. So thinking about what are we doing? Why are we doing what we're doing? And then I want to describe each of the major assignments and some of the philosophy of learning behind them. So let's get started. So overall, the goals of the course are threefold. We've got three major things we're trying to accomplish. So the first is to better plan for future learning by reflecting upon your strategies for developing digital literacies. Okay, so part of what we're going to do in this course is not just learn new technology or be introduced to different types of technology. We will do those things, but what we really want to do is think about sort of how we learn. What are the ways and strategies we use to actually learn technology? What are ways that we sort of adapt to develop new digital literacies or new approaches to integrating technology into our work? So this is sort of a meta objective in that we're really thinking about how we learn in general. We're really reflecting on how we learn in general. And that's sort of part of what is a driving force in the way that I teach and the way that all of us really teach here in the technical communication department is it's important to learn the skills. It's important to learn the technology, but it's also equally important to sort of understand ourselves and what strategies we're employing for ourselves as we learn those tools. So the first objective will be to really reflect on the ways that we're learning about digital literacies. Objective two is going to focus more on the different technologies that will be introduced to. So objective two is we want to use, and not just use, but also understand the roles of the following technology as technical communicators, right? So we want to understand the roles of HTML and CSS. What are they? How do we actually use HTML and CSS? But more importantly, why in the world would a technical communicator need to use HTML and CSS? What situations would it be appropriate? Same with web design, right? So we want to understand, we want to apply our knowledge of HTML and CSS into building and communicating via the web. But also why and where and when would a technical communicator do such a thing? Thirdly, we want to learn about content management systems. And more importantly, we want to learn about how content itself feeds into a content management system, and then how we actually reuse that content, right? So we'll talk about things like single sourcing. We'll talk about concepts like modular content. So these are content pieces that are smaller and modular that can be connected in multiple places, in multiple contexts for multiple audiences. So we'll talk about content management systems. We'll also talk about number four, screencasting, right? So part of what you'll be asked to do is to produce a screencasted video. And we'll talk about that more in the next slide. And then finally, the use of instant messaging, right? So how to appropriately use instant messaging in individual, so one-to-one communication, and then also group communication. The third objective focuses on how we actually apply the knowledge of the tools and techniques that I discussed in the previous slide. So how are we actually applying HTML and CSS? How are we actually applying our knowledge of content management systems? So objective three states we want to apply knowledge of digital tools and techniques when, one, we design a portfolio website. So one of the big projects in this course is you're going to design and build a website using WordPress for a professional portfolio. Okay, so we'll be applying some of the digital literacies that we'll be learning to actually creating a portfolio website. Second would be to write modular content. So I referenced this previously when I talked about content management systems, but what we'll be doing and how we'll be applying our knowledge of content management systems is to actually write content that's modular. right? So part of what you'll be asked to do is to work on a project where you'll be asked to write modular content. Um, Thirdly, you'll also be asked to publish single source content, right? So there's a project where you'll be using software called Madcap Flare to take your sort of modularized content, um, uh, aggregate that content, and then produce and publish from a single source to multiple outputs. So, for example, we could publish to the web and we could also publish to print to a PDF. Right? So we're using the same content. We're not sort of reinventing the wheel. We're reusing our content, and we're publishing it to multiple outputs, to either the web or to print. Fourthly, we'll produce a screencast. And one of the things that you'll be asked to do is to basically create a quick start guide via screencast. So instructional materials via screencast. And then you'll be asked to use Slack throughout the semester as we communicate via instant message. So those are the three sort of overarching objectives for the course. I wanted to really quickly talk about course workload. And I'm sure you've been introduced to this a bit as you were admitted into the program, or if you've taken other courses in the program. You may have been introduced to this idea of like, what is a appropriate workload for a particular graduate course? So according to state and federal regulations, a credit hour requires at least 1 hour of direct faculty instruction and 2 hours outside of class. So roughly speaking, 1 credit hour is about 3 hours per week. So if we do the math, a 3 credit hour course, such as this course, would be about 9 hours a week if we were in a full 15-week semester. But as you know, in our graduate program, we run our courses in 8-week half semesters. Well, not quite a half semester, but the math kind of works out to about 16.8 hours a week over 8 weeks, right? So if we were to emulate this course as a face-to-face course, but just sort of move it online, all else being equal, you would be spending about 16.8 hours a week over 8 weeks. That is, I think, unreasonable. So the way that we've created and scheduled these courses, and in particular this course, TECM 5191, will be working around 10 hours a week. Okay, some weeks are going to be less, 8, 7 hours. Some weeks are going to be more, 10, 11, 12 hours. But we're going to average around 8 hours per week. One thing I really wanted to point out too is in each of the 8 modules, which represents each week in the semester, I've clearly laid out the learning outcomes or objectives at the beginning. So the very first page you'll see in every module is this sort of weekly or modular overview of what's happening this week. So you'll see the learning objectives, which are very important to sort of wrap your head around what are we actually trying to accomplish this week. And then even more important is this weekly to-do list, right? So the weekly to-do list is sort of broken up between midweek activities and end of week activities. So midweek will be due Wednesday at midnight. So we can think of our week starting on Monday. Midweek would be Wednesday by midnight. You would have several activities to complete. And what I've done in each of these overviews is every single activity has a time estimate, right? So of course, this is going to be different for everybody. We all work at different paces, but this is sort of a conservative estimate for how long I think each activity will potentially take. So for example, joining Slack, I put 30 minutes. For most of you, that's probably going to be 10 minutes, maybe even 5. Completing the baseline digital literacy survey, I put 15 minutes. Some of you might take 20, some of you might take 10. And then reader watch the instructional material, and that will be 1 hour. So these are just time estimates. And that's sort of what, if we're talking about this very first week, the midweek assignments. And then every week there'll be end of week assignments as well. So these are assignments that will be due Sunday at midnight. So right at midnight, that's when all of your end of week assignments will be due. So those are things like submitting the web web portfolio preparation assignment. That's going to be 3 hours, I've estimated. Completing a discussion board posting on the instructional material, I've estimated 2 hours for that, and scheduling a Zoom meeting with myself, 15 minutes. Again, these are conservative estimates. So if we take this total, we're looking at almost about 7 hours of work to do this first week. For a lot of you, it's going to be less than that. For some of you, it might be about 7 hours. But I just wanted to point out to you, as you're planning, I think it's important to understand. Sort of how these different activities sort of break down from a time perspective. The other thing I wanted to point out to you is the overall sort of assignments, major assignments. So you'll see on the left column your major assignments, and really these are percentages, right? So what percent of your total grade are these worth? So we've got our web portfolio. That's going to be an assignment that's going to be spanning from the beginning of the semester. You'll be introduced to this assignment in week 1 all the way till the end. The final web portfolio will be due at the end of or near the end of the semester. And that's worth 15% of your grade, or 15 points. There's another assignment called the single source project. And basically you're going to work on a team to implement and execute a single source project of content. So you're going to create the modular content. You're going to use software to create multiple outputs for that content, and that's going to be worth 30% of your total grade. You've got a screencasting project where you'll create a quick start guide over a piece of software or something technical using screencasting as your medium. You'll write that's worth 25% of your grade. You'll write a reflective memo, and that is worth 10% of your grade. And then you've got discussion posts, which I take very seriously. Not that I want to punish you or I want to try to find ways to deduct points from you. But I think part of learning and part of my teaching philosophy is really reflecting on the learning that we're doing and reflecting with your fellow classmates. So we've got 7 discussion board posts, and that's worth 15% of your total grade. And then we've got other miscellaneous activities. So these are assignments. These are assignments that will support larger projects like your web portfolio or your single source project. These are sort of smaller milestones along the way. And these are going to be worth a total of 5% of your total grade. So you can kind of see how the course is broken down. You can kind of see what your major assignments are. I encourage you to go through the syllabus in more detail and really take a look at all of the different moving parts. One thing that I don't want to belabor the point on, but there are going to be projects that are going to overlap, meaning like, for example, this web portfolio project, it's going to take you throughout the whole 8 weeks. And you're going to be asked to do various things throughout the 8 weeks. The single source project doesn't start until a few weeks into the semester, but you'll be working subsequently on parts for your web portfolio project, but then also as a team member for your single source project. So there's going to be necessarily multitasking happening. And so I provide this overview to you to just encourage you to really plan ahead, especially as you're thinking about time management and things like that. For a successful semester, it's really important to just know and have a clear expectation of what's coming in the pipeline. So this was a general course overview. Of course, if you've got any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to email me. And I really look forward to learning alongside with y'all. So I hope this is going to be a great semester, and thank you for your time.